In the brochure, every Antarctic adventure appears flawless. Blue skies, placid seas, and posing penguins. However, after 3 journeys, I've witnessed firsthand what actually occurs once you're on board. Unexpected things that no cruise line will reveal to you up front. It's not the mess they show you, but the magic. The portion where the oceans rage, schedules fall apart, and your ideal experience suddenly becomes unpredictable is hidden by the slick videos. There is a side of Antarctica that cruise lines never bring up until you are on board, including canceled landings, stringent regulations, and even unforeseen health dangers. Additionally, this will help you steer clear of expensive surprises and unrealistic expectations if Antarctica is on your bucket list. Because most people who travel for the first time are blind. They believe it to be just another opulent cruise with milder temperatures. However, Antarctica does not follow cruise regulations. As soon as you set sail, you come to understand that you have entered a world that is uncontrolled, untamed, and raw. I'm sharing the 17 facts that no Antarctic cruise line will ever acknowledge today. Those who have the power to create or ruin your journey. Stay there because number 3 will fundamentally alter your perception of what it would be like to walk on Antarctica. Let's get right to what actually occurs after you join. 17. The itinerary is made up. The itinerary in glossy brochures appears to be well thought out, following easy routes across South Georgia, the Antarctic Peninsula, and possibly even Deception Island. Here's the reality, though. Nobody brings it up. That schedule is merely a recommendation and not a commitment. In Antarctica, the actual schedule is dictated by nature. Overnight, everything changes with a single change in the wind and a single sheet of sea ice. Every morning, expedition leaders and captains convene to determine what is feasible for the day. A stop you've been dreaming about for years may occasionally be canceled. Safety always prevails over scenery, not because they want to. You might miss the well-known locations listed in every guidebook as you sail for days past frozen vistas you were never meant to see. When they return home, many tourists discover that they never made it to the places that initially drew them in, such as the volcanic rim of Deception Island or the striking cliffs of the Antarctic Sound. It isn't deceptive advertising. Antarctica is merely reminding you that regulations aren't made by humans down here. Your port may change if you are number 16. You most likely envision the exact starting point of your adventure when you make your reservation. Perhaps Argentina's southernmost point, Ushuaia, which is regarded as the entryway to Antarctica. Here's the catch, though. Not even where you start is assured. Everything might change in an instant due to strong winds, choppy seas, or abrupt port closures. At the last minute, cruise lines frequently change embarkation ports, sometimes to a completely other city hundreds of kilometers away. The announcement is frequently sent to passengers only 24 hours before departure, causing them to rush to alter their travel, lodging, and flight arrangements. This is the aspect that most tourists are unaware of. Cruise lines are aware that this can occur, but they hardly ever bring it up. Why? Because people don't buy flexibility. In Antarctica, the fact is that even your first step on board the ship might turn into an unexpected experience before you've even left the port, despite the brochure's assurance of a smooth start. Landings at number 15 are frequently canceled. There is no assurance that you will set foot on land, even if your ship eventually makes it to Antarctica's white edge. Many tourists believe that getting to the destination entails going on ice or walking among penguins. However, the weather has other ideas. A sudden reduction in visibility, floating sea ice, or even high swells might make Zodiac launches too risky to try, and then everything comes to a halt. The crew must immediately postpone landings, often for a full day, and substitute what they refer to as scenic cruise. Bundled in layers, you will stand on deck and see the frozen shoreline as it passes by. Yes, it's beautiful, but not what you spent hundreds of dollars to see. When they learn that the daily landings advertised in brochures are more of a best-case scenario than a guarantee, many first-time tourists are devastated. Schedules don't matter in Antarctica. It determines when you are permitted entry and when you are not. 14. There is no assurance of wildlife. The identical thing is shown in every brochure. Penguins waddling in precise rows, seals relaxing on shimmering ice, and slow-motion whale breaches. In actuality, however, Antarctic wildlife has its own schedule, not yours. When you go determines exactly what you see. Heavy snowfall, striking ice sculptures, and penguins starting to breed are all features of the early season, which is November and December. Whales are still rare, though. The scenery begins to shift in December and January, which is mid-season. The waters warm somewhat, causing snow to melt, penguin chicks to hatch, and an increase in whale activity. The late season, which lasts from February to March, follows. Whales take center stage as the snow starts to melt and penguins begin to depart from their colonies. Therefore, time is crucial if you dream of particular interactions. If you book at the wrong time, you may miss the very animals you came to see while sailing on stunning ice for days. Antarctica presents opportunities, but no assurances. And that's one of the things that makes it so crazy. Anticipate unexpected pauses at number 13. It's not all setbacks and cancellations. Antarctica might surprise you in the most delightful way. When the weather clears or the ice shifts, completely new pathways appear, leading to locations that were never listed in the guidebook. The expedition crew constantly monitors sea conditions and satellite data in an effort to find safe routes that were inaccessible just a few days prior. And when those times arrive, the captain decides to investigate them right away. Some of your trip's most memorable moments may result from these excursions, such as discovering a secret bay where a huge colony of penguins congregates, or silently passing a city block-sized iceberg that no other ship has seen that season. Every journey down here creates its own narrative. Expeditions never take the same route twice. Antarctica is both humble and remarkable because of its unpredictable nature and the feeling that you're witnessing something genuinely unrepeatable. The brochure is misleading on number 12. You fell in love with Antarctica after seeing those stunning pictures. Rarely can one vacation provide the ideal combination of penguins beneath azure sky, snow-capped peaks, and gorgeous sunsets. The majority of marketing photos are combined from many ships, months, and even geographical locations. Your actual schedule will cover a lot more ground than what you see online. A brochure might, for instance, depict frozen waters and tall snowdrifts. However, your cruise occurs during the melt season in February, when the ice appears entirely different and much of the snow has disappeared. Instead of a frozen wonderland, you might encounter gloomy rock cliffs and dirty penguin colonies. Because the illusion sells better than the reality, cruise lines hardly ever mention that, and most brokers don't either. Therefore, even while the pictures are authentic, the expectations they engender are frequently not. The version of Antarctica you see in advertisements may not be the one that is waiting for you because it changes every month. Number 11. Travel and medical emergencies. Few tourists consider it until it actually occurs. There are no permanent rescue bases, clinics, or hospitals in Antarctica. Each ship has one doctor and a small medical room, but that's about it. The entire expedition alters its course if any of the crew members experience a significant illness or injury, even something as little as a fractured bone or chest trouble. A 10-day voyage may occasionally be shortened by a few days since the ship must turn around and return to South America. Rarely, but only in favorable weather conditions, evacuation aircraft can be scheduled from King George Island. And you can never be sure of that in Antarctica. Aircraft are unable to land for days as the weather deteriorates. Most travelers are unaware that everyone on board is impacted by a single medical issue. If someone else needs immediate assistance, your once-in-a-lifetime journey may end sooner rather than later due to your health. It serves as a sobering reminder that safety always comes before landscape down here and that loneliness is real. Number 10. There is seldom any internet. The degree of isolation in Antarctica is one thing that many tourists find surprising. Satellite Wi-Fi is frequently promoted by cruise lines, giving the impression that you will be connected the entire time. The truth is rather different. The majority of connections are excruciatingly slow, not nearly enough to check a message or send a single text. For days or perhaps weeks, forget about uploading pictures, making real-time updates, or streaming anything online. Really, you're off the grid. No social media, no email, and no fast Google searches. Only you, the ship, and the surrounding unspoiled wilderness. This is a frustrating shock for some people. Others see it as a unique and enchanted opportunity to fully detach and take in the continent's natural beauty. In any case, most tourists are unaware of this fact until they are at sea. On number 9, you'll encounter stringent regulations. All passengers are required to attend mandatory briefings prior to landing on Antarctic soil. These are not optional. To safeguard the delicate ecosystem of the continent, the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, or IATO, maintains a lengthy set of rules. You'll receive precise instructions on how far to avoid wildlife, what not to do once on shore, and how to manage your equipment. The fact that you can't even sit or kneel down to get the ideal low-angle penguin shots surprises a lot of tourists. Additionally, you are not allowed to leave anything on the ground, not even a snack or backpack. You have to take all you bring with you. Although the regulations may seem onerous, they are in place to protect one of the planet's most unspoiled environments. However, first-time visitors who anticipate having unrestricted freedom to wander may be surprised to learn how meticulously every step is managed. Constant gear checkups come in at number 8. You will experience something that most travelers never anticipate before each new landing area. Stringent biosecurity inspections. Every single object that might make touch with the ground is examined by the crew. Tripods, boots, jackets, gloves, backpacks, and even your shoe soles. The aim is straightforward yet important. You'll need to repeat cleaning processes several times during the journey to keep small seeds, dirt, or microbes from other areas from polluting Antarctica's fragile ecology. The process includes cleaning boots, vacuuming equipment, and disinfecting zippers. These actions are necessary to preserve one of the planet's few genuinely pure ecosystems, even if they can be tiresome and time-consuming. The thoroughness and repetition of these inspections surprise most first-time visitors, but in Antarctica, even a tiny bit of dirt counts. The 7th is that research bases have been shut down. One of the highlights of many expeditions a few years ago was visiting Antarctic research facilities. Visitors could take a facility tour, interact with scientists, and witness actual research in progress. However, that experience has mostly vanished since then. The majority of research bases are kept off-limits to tourists, not for reasons of secrecy, but rather to shield the scientists who work there from possible exposure and contamination. Surprisingly, despite the fact that these visits are prohibited, several cruise lines continue to highlight them in their brochures and online advertisements. As a result, travelers frequently board with the expectation of speaking with researchers and touring labs, only to be informed that these activities are prohibited once on board. One of those subtle post-pandemic shifts that is rarely brought up until it is too late. Additionally, a lot of tourists are disappointed because they were hoping for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. 6th, the quality of the team makes or breaks the outcome. Your entire Antarctic experience hinges on the expedition team, regardless of how opulent the ship is or how much the ticket costs. The decisions on where to land, when to go ashore, and how to maximize each uncertain day are made by these individuals. A competent, seasoned leader may transform postponed plans into amazing surprises by locating secret coves, uncommon wildlife locations, or fresh photo ops when bad weather disrupts the itinerary. However, the reverse is also true. The same trip can seem unorganized and uninspired with a weak or inexperienced team. Just a lack of communication or inadequate planning could cause you to miss important occasions. The tough issue is that until you're on board, you hardly ever find out who your excursion leader or guides are. Their expertise, enthusiasm, and judgment can mean the difference between an unpleasant journey and a memorable experience. No photographer at number 5? Unfortunately, the majority of Antarctic expeditions use to have a working photographer and filmmaker. Amazing footage of your trip, the landings, the wildlife, and those once-in-a-lifetime glacier moments would be captured by them. Additionally, you would receive expertly taken pictures and a highlight reel at the conclusion of the trip to preserve the memories. However, in order to save money, a lot of cruise lines have quietly discontinued these initiatives. You're on your own now unless you have your own equipment. You will have to deal with less than ideal conditions, such as frigid winds, salt spray, shifting Zodiac boats, and cameras and lenses. Many passengers are unaware of this change until they have boarded, long after it is too late to make any preparations. It's a minor feature that once gave the vacation amazing value, and its absence disappoints a lot of travelers, especially when they learn that they now have to take those picture-perfect photos. Fourth, ship size makes all the difference. The ship's size is one aspect of planning an Antarctic expedition that is rarely discussed, and it has the power to totally alter your experience. Smaller ships with less than 200 passengers can land at nearly any location, allowing you extra time on shore and an opportunity to get a closer look. Without feeling hurried, you may disembark swiftly, explore safely, and take in the wildlife. More stringent restrictions apply to medium-sized ships carrying 300 to 500 passengers. Every day, fewer landings are possible. Zodiac transfers have longer wait times and a more congested, shorter onshore experience. Then there are the biggest ships, carrying more than 500 people, where landings are frequently strictly forbidden. You remain on deck as Antarctica passes by on these ships, which only engage in scenic cruise, not near enough to touch it, but close enough to see it. Many tourists expect the same access as smaller expeditions and only become aware of this restriction after reserving a larger, less expensive ship. And when reality sets in, it can be a devastating shock. Third, regulations are subject to change at any time. Nothing in Antarctica is ever going to remain the same, even once you're on board. Regulations and limitations are subject to change at any time, occasionally abruptly closing down entire sections. Unexpected dangers, disease outbreaks, or environmental issues may need the expedition crew to make last-minute changes to their preparations. For instance, dozens of tourists who had planned to see the famous penguin colonies were impacted when an avian flu outbreak caused a mid-season restriction on all landings in South Georgia. Expedition leaders are required to adhere strictly to these real-time updates. The rules cannot be bent or negotiated. First and foremost are environmental preservation and safety. When marketing their itineraries, cruise lines rarely highlight the possibility of these unexpected trip-wide disruptions. So many customers are taken aback when plans abruptly change in a single day. In Antarctica, adaptability is necessary, not optional. Second, not everyone is a fan of Zodiac rides. In theory, those little rubber boats known as Zodiacs seem like an exciting and daring way to see Antarctica. However, reality sets in once you're out on the sea. The boat slams into frozen waters. For what seems like an age, the cold wind stings your face as the icy spray soaks your clothes. On one of these boats, 30 minutes can seem like much longer, and the journey is definitely not as gentle as one might think from pictures. Anyone who struggles with movement or balance will find it even more difficult to board and depart on slick ice. It can be dangerous and draining. To get on or off the Zodiac safely, even seasoned passengers occasionally have to cling to rails or wait for help. Although these rides have the potential to provide lifelong memories, they are not a simple or informal experience. Furthermore, a lot of first-time guests are unaware of this until they are actually on the water. First, the expensive delusion. Let's finally discuss what many passengers don't know until they're on board. The expensive delusion of navigating the Antarctic. With promises of flawless sailing, well-timed landings, and wildlife encounters straight out of a brochure, luxury cruise lines frequently promote these journeys as five-star luxury at the end of the world. The reality is much more unpredictable, even though the ships themselves can be breathtaking. Raw, untamed, and entirely under the control of nature is Antarctica. The changing winds, the ice, and the weather are all beyond your control. Many trips lose days because of missing ports, canceled landings, or choppy seas, regardless of how opulent your accommodation is or how much you've paid. You might not be able to see the famous sights you've always wanted to see, such Deception Island, Antarctic Sound, or enormous penguin colonies. However, despite these restrictions, a vacation can still cost tens of thousands of dollars. For some, this is like paying for an unrealized fantasy. Here's the opposite, though. Antarctica is unique precisely because of its unpredictable nature. Every journey is different, influenced by weather, wildlife, and ice in ways that no timetable or brochure can ever fully convey. Travelers can accept the journey for what it is, not what they anticipated from glossy photographs and marketing promises, when they are aware of this reality.